Alright, what's up you guys? Welcome to another episode of Sharkstalgia, where I talk about all things 80s and 90s in the form of modern era comebacks. As today I'm going to review, or subtly do an overview on the new King of the Hill revival series that just came out not too long ago. And although there are other reviews out there who are doing a far more better job than me, I'm just here to share my thoughts because I just finished the series last night. It was only 10 episodes, so pretty smooth sailing. But I will say, as a King of the Hill fan, grew up watching the show, had a strong attachment to most of the characters, and I will say that this show surprisingly has that warm feeling of when you watch a really good show and then the show finishes, you're kind of left with like a little empty void. And I feel like that's what this King of the Hill revival series did, even though it was only 10 episodes, but it was just the right amount of consistency to keep the audience, or even myself, engaged for all 10 episodes. And I think Mike Judge did an absolutely great job at taking the characters from like the old golden times of the 90s and even 2000s era, and kind of like just copying and pasting those same character traits and then putting them in a modern aesthetic. And that's what I feel like Mike Judge did a really great job at doing. So this will be a spoiler review or overview, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to try my best to kind of go over through every character story arc, just what I liked and not liked, or whatever it is. But for the starters, I will say everyone picks up right where they kind of leave off, in the sense of everyone is roughly the same while they're adapting to new times. So we see Hank and Peggy come back from Saudi Arabia, as now they are both retired, and Hank is trying to figure out what to do with his life now because he has a lot of free time, and Peggy as well. So one of the really coolest things that I've learned, or at least didn't understand how things have changed so drastically, is that when Hank and Peggy come back to Arlen, Texas, and they're at the airport and they see all these fancy shops, I don't quite realize how drastic the airports have changed over the years until I realized, like, that's absolutely right. I don't remember seeing all these high-end stores at the airports compared to when I used to grow up, like in the 90s. So that was a really cool part. And then seeing how nowadays, with safety and sensitivity, we see Hank trying to drive to his house, and then there's all these what do you call it, like there's all these borders, or like these lines that indicating him that he shouldn't take U-turns, or he's not allowed to go in a certain direction because he has to go all the way around first. So I thought that was pretty funny, because where I live here in the East Coast, it's roughly the same thing. So they did add some new, road work, if you want to, so to speak. And then we have the high emphasis of the whole show, which is adult Bobby Hill. And I will say, after all the shit that Hank has given him throughout the first series, the old series, I will say that I'm very proud of how Bobby became, and how he managed to become successful in his own right, even if he didn't go to school. Bobby was, I don't want to explain too much of how he was in the old show, but seeing him go from that to kind of finding himself as a new, aspiring chef and being a part of a restaurant, I feel very proud of him, and I'm very happy for him that he kind of found his belonging. He's come a long ways from Hank giving him a hard time of that boy ain't being right. So very kudos to Bobby. He does go through some relationships, and then which goes into the situation with Connie. We do see Connie come back into the series, and then her and Bobby kind of slowly start going on and off again. But Connie is like how Bobby said in one of the episodes, "You're so loose and you're so cheap." I feel like Connie is still in that same situation. However, it doesn't get explained until I think one of the last two episodes, where we find out that Connie's parents are actually getting divorced. So that explains why her mentality of being in a relationship makes sense of why it's not worth for her. So she would rather be in a relationship where the two people can just do whatever the hell they want and not have any strong emotional attachment. So that explains her character development. So it kind of messed her up and traumatized her, but especially with how her father Khan is. And not only that, going back to Bobby, he's a kind of a ladies' man now, roughly, so to speak, and he's getting action, which is really awesome. And the voice actors of Khan, unfortunately, is no longer with us, or I believe he changed. So it sucks, but it was a good attempt. But Khan did have one of the funnier episodes near the end where he was contemplating his life as he was now sleeping in the garage because he is divorced from Min, and then all four alley boys like Hank, Bill, Boomhauer, and Dale, they come to give Khan a beer and they want to hang out with him because they associate him as part of the community. And then Khan just ends up closing the garage door on them, which I thought was really hilarious. But it tops it off right when Bill says, "Can I date your wife?" or something like that. So I thought Bill literally stole the entire series, that 10-episode arc, just with that one line. And speaking of Bill, we see him, hit like a down low because Hank and Peggy left for that time being in Saudi Arabia, and then Bill had a beard. He was binging Netflix, and then he got a wellness fair check, which I thought was pretty funny because he pretty much watched like every single damn show on Netflix, which I thought was funny as hell. Bill is also retired, and I think Bill had some really comedic highlights with just his one-lining, and we kind of get to see the mental state of Bill as for his story arc. He is saddened by his loneliness and becomes, we know that Bill was always depressed, but it kind of shows a lot more as he's growing with age. And of course he gains a little bit of weight, but then he shaves his beard off and stuff like that. So Bill does have new friends also, like at the barbershop, which I thought was pretty cool. And he's still chasing after Peggy, so to speak, and still doing what's right in some way, but also still being the way Bill is. Then we have Boomhauer. Boomhauer's in a relationship and has like his girlfriend's son that he kind of takes care of once in a while, and we don't really get to see too much of Boomhauer other than him investing in his stock or his company, which plummeted near the end, which I thought was a real life choice of how we see Hank still holding on to how the stock market is, in terms of if you get too excited it could crash and you can lose everything within a minute. So I thought that was pretty cool, but otherwise we don't see too much of Boomhauer, even though his facial expression did change out of everyone. He had the most facial changes in terms of like bags under his eyes and looks a lot more older with age and wisdom. And plus we see the technology of Boomhauer as he's more using that app where people hire as a freelance construction contractor worker. So that was pretty cool. And he has like 5 stars. Then we have Dale. Dale is Dale. I mean, the voice actor unfortunately passed away, so rest in peace to him. But Dale is still being Dale, and I like how he has all the monitors, and then he's basically has files of every single person in his basement of the community and all like their flaws and stuff, which was freaking hilarious. Then we have Joseph. Joseph is pretty funny in his own way because he actually sounds a lot more like John Redcorn. And John Redcorn, John Redcorn, we don't see too much of him other than him being in partnership with Nancy for a YouTube channel or real estate or whatever. But Joseph is he works for the city, and then in terms of like construction work. So every time Joseph would talk, he has that whole John Redcorn aesthetic, which is absolutely hilarious, and that's probably the best I can say, and that's the only character arc that he's had so far. And then John Redcorn, we don't see too much of him other than him making his own corn stock or business, and then we see Nancy going in partnership with him as well, and I think they're both still doing the same thing. I'm not sure, but it was kind of like vaguely spoken about. And then other than that, you know, the whole show really focuses more on Bobby and Hank and just their bond between father and son and respecting each other for who they've become now. It's really cool to see how, you know, Bobby has more of an opinion and he's sticking to his grounds rather than always listening to what other people have to say. And you know, we see Bobby become more of an adult as he's learning the concept of not being too nice, but also being just the right amount of, you know, level-headed person in terms of when he's buying a car or being in a relationship, and just knowing that his self-worth is more respected than losing himself to make other people happy. And other than that, like, you know, we still got to see what's going to happen between him and Connie, even though I don't support this relationship by one means. I hate Connie, but everyone else is fine. We still get to see Buck Strickland, which I thought was interesting. We also see Hank have a relationship with his half-brother, Good Hank, which I thought was hilarious because Good Hank has like traits of Cotton, and Cotton did pass away finally. So that we don't get to dive too much about it, but that's, you know, it was a given after all these years anyway. So yeah, other than that, the show does offer a lot of great new age storytelling of how these characters are adapting to new times with cell phones and texting, and how Bobby, it doesn't know how to really respond to people in messages because, you know, he's learning how to use periods and exclamation marks and stuff like that. So again, it's like a really rebirth of coming of age story, and I appreciate Mike Judge for giving us that, a fresh take of King of the Hill. And one of the things I really love before I conclude this review is how peaceful Arlen, Texas is. The whole vibe is just so nice that I feel like it's just a place that I would love to live into. I love Bobby's apartment, as he's also roommates with Joseph, and just the whole style of Arlen just looks so peaceful, so calming, and it kind of gives you like that summer vibe of like, yeah, this is like the cool part of Texas. Like, it looks so cool. But other than that, it's just one of those things where I felt really at peace. Like, it was like a show that I didn't know I needed, and even though, again, being only 10 episodes, it was pretty much well worth all those 10 episodes of watching. So other than that, yeah, so it does have some funny moments here and there, but yeah, I think they did a really great job, and it's a welcoming addition into the new line, in sense of not a lot of continuations or revivals do a great job, but Mike Judge really captured all those characters to a T, bringing them back into a modern era aesthetic, and it worked really well. So hopefully we get another season, but otherwise I think the show did, those 10 episodes did a really great job. So I want to thank you guys all for watching. Be sure to give a like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next episode.